hijacked. When you woke up,
I know where you live.
Looks like this.
Toni.
To wonder in a
Toni.
Okay, so I want to tell a story today, and that story is about how one of my aunts in my family do not talk to me because they think that I, at the age of 16, did something with her partner at the time. And I have been a nervous wreck to talk about something like this and to tell this story. Because my family.
Tamar just cracked this whole situation wide open, and the Braxton circle is straight up rattling right now. She basically dragged Toni into the spotlight for trying to silence her, and the way she exposed it had everyone stunned. Tamar said Toni sent her a cease and desist the second she stood beside their niece, Ashley, who was speaking on some serious concerns about one of the sisters' husbands. And Tamar wasn't folding for anybody.
Because I don't want people, it's not to hurt people to tell my story, but at the same time, I've been working through this so much in therapy, and this is something that goes way deep to my core in terms of worthiness and how I feel about myself. And it's been such a journey.
Once Tamar refused to quiet down, people behind the scenes started whispering that Toni allegedly pushed things even further, like she was trying to remove Tamar from the whole Braxton setup entirely, like she could just pretend Tamar wasn't even part of the family machine anymore. Folks forget Tamar is not the one to cross because she came swinging with the truth, saying Toni was out here protecting a PDF file. And that phrase alone had social media spinning. Insiders are saying production turned real tense after that. Rooms felt colder, conversations got shorter, and every move started feeling suspicious. Sisters bumping heads behind closed doors, producers stressing in corners, and people on set whispering that Toni might be putting her whole career on the line just to shield someone else. And if that's true, that raises a whole new set of questions, because nobody understands why Toni is standing so firm for this man everyone keeps asking about. Fans have been screaming for years that this whole situation needed to be addressed out loud, not hidden behind edited scenes and rehearsed smiles. And now that Tamar put everything out there with this kind of force, people are sitting back wondering what Toni is really trying to protect, and why she's willing to push her own sister away over it. Tamar lit a fuse that could flip the whole family storyline upside down, and she's sitting there watching every second explode with full intention behind it. One thing about Tamar, she refuses to be treated like she's invisible, and she made that loud and clear on camera with no hesitation. That's exactly why she stepped straight to Toni at that dinner table, even though everybody else thought it was supposed to be a chill family moment. While the rest of them were sipping drinks and trying to keep the vibe soft, Tamar pulled up with a whole different mission because she wanted the truth out, no matter how wild things got. She looked Toni right in the face and accused her of trying to block her moves, explaining that she planned to bring Ashley onto their podcast so Ashley could share her side and talk about the concerns she had involving one of the Braxton husbands. And according to Tamar, the second, not the minute, the second, she even mentioned bringing Ashley onto the show, Toni hit her with that cease and desist so fast she didn't even get a chance to test the microphone, let alone record a clip. Tamar said it felt like she was being shut down before she could even breathe, and that's what made her start questioning what Toni was working overtime to hide. People online heard the audio and immediately started debating like it was a courtroom, especially since a few viewers tried to say the sisters were just protecting the family. But when Trina and Tawanda stepped into the situation with that energy they brought, it made the whole thing feel way deeper than simple family loyalty. It felt like something had been brewing long before cameras even started rolling. Now fans are sitting here divided, wondering why Toni is this committed to keeping Ashley from speaking on what she experienced, especially when Ashley wasn't trying to attack anybody. She was just trying to explain what she went through. The conversation online is completely split, and people are choosing sides like it's a championship game. Some people think Toni is just being extra because she and Tamar have had tension simmering for years, while others believe Toni knows exactly who Ashley was talking about and is trying hard to shield that man from the spotlight. Social media blew up with comments like, "Toni's anger is suspicious," and others saying Libras get loud when they're trying to distract from the truth. And that had folks side-eyeing everything with serious suspicion, especially since Toni shut down the podcast idea before Ashley even had a chance to say a single word on record. This whole situation is spinning out fast, and the wildest part is Ashley's story isn't even new inside that family circle. The way Toni reacted so strong and so quick had fans convinced she already knew exactly who Ashley was pointing at. And just to keep it clear, Ashley isn't some distant relative. She's the daughter of their older brother, Michael Braxton Jr., so these ties are tight, and the concerns she brought forward were aimed at the partner of one of her aunts. The name being whispered, allegedly Trina. And that's where everything gets even more tangled. There's a whole lot of chatter saying Trina is not happy that her name and her ex-husband, Gabe Solis, keep getting dragged into this storm over and over again. She's reportedly annoyed that old family tension is being pushed right back into the spotlight at a moment when she wasn't even thinking about that chapter anymore. Now that Ashley's story is popping up again and people online are rediscussing everything with fresh eyes, the whole Braxton circle is getting pulled into the same whirlwind. And instead of calming down, the situation is getting heavier and louder with every new detail that surfaces. Ashley once shared that years back, her father and stepmother came across some messages that instantly made them uncomfortable. Messages involving her and her aunt's partner. She said that at first, her aunt was fully supportive, clearly upset that anything uncomfortable had even happened, and she showed real empathy, making sure Ashley felt safe during a confusing and stressful moment. Ashley described it in her own words, saying, "My aunt was there for me. She was very kind, very nice, and was like, 'I'm sorry this happened to you.' She was very kind and it just felt safe." That early comfort made Ashley feel understood, like someone in the family actually saw what she was going through and cared enough to stand by her in it. But as time went on, Ashley started noticing the whole energy around the situation slowly shifting. The compassion she had received in the beginning was fading away, and according to Ashley, it felt like people were suddenly trying to twist the situation back onto her. She said it was like the blame was sliding in her direction, even though she never sought out anything inappropriate, never encouraged anything, and never created any kind of situation that would put her in the wrong. Ashley said the change didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, a small switch here, a different tone there, a new distance showing up where warmth used to be. And then the shift went from subtle to cold, because she claimed her aunt eventually stopped talking to her completely. No explanation, no conversation, no closure, just a sudden wall where there was once safety. That silence left Ashley feeling hurt and confused because she truly believed she hadn't done anything wrong. She was a young person placed in an uncomfortable situation, and instead of being supported like she was at first, she said she felt pushed out and blamed for something she didn't start, didn't continue, and didn't understand at the time. Ashley also shared that things started feeling strange with other relatives too, saying they acted extra friendly with the man involved, like none of those uncomfortable moments had ever happened. She said it felt surreal, like everyone else was moving around normally while she was carrying the weight of something heavy on her spirit. It left her feeling isolated, punished, and misunderstood at a time when she was just trying to make sense of everything that had happened around her. And when Ashley finally opened up publicly, some people online immediately tried to label her as someone chasing attention, which only made things messier. But plenty of others pushed back, saying she was simply speaking her truth after staying silent for so long, and she had every right to tell her side openly without being attacked for it. Once people started believing Ashley's story, a bunch of viewers instantly jumped to assuming she was talking about Tamar, just throwing guesses without knowing the facts. But Tamar shut that rumor down instantly, with zero hesitation. She let everybody know she was not the aunt in question, and she wasn't letting her name get tied to something she had nothing to do with. Tamar made it clear she actually wanted Ashley on the show because she genuinely cared about her well-being and wanted her to speak her truth safely. Tamar even mentioned she supported Ashley when she shared that she was going to therapy to work through everything she had been dealing with, and people respected that honesty. Once Tamar cleared her name cleanly, fans went right back into detective mode, connecting dots on their own, trying to figure out which Braxton sister Ashley was referring to. And even though nobody in the family officially confirmed anything, online watchers were convinced the situation pointed toward Trina and her ex-husband, Gabe Solis. The comments turned into threads, the threads turned into theories, and the theories turned into full-blown debates as people tried to piece together a timeline. Now the whole conversation has shifted into something way bigger, with folks revisiting old scenes, old interviews, and old family dynamics like they're reviewing evidence in a case. And with Ashley's story resurfacing again, everyone is looking at the family in a new light. Not because they want drama, but because they want clarity on something that clearly left deep emotional scars for her. A lot of people weren't shocked when Ashley spoke up, because there had already been years of rumors floating around about Gabe having unusual behavior and interests that never sat right with viewers. Folks who watched the show from the early seasons remembered all the chaos Trina went through with Gabe, the ups, the downs, the breakups, the makeups, and yet she stayed in that marriage for a long time. So fans felt like there was a real chance she might have known more than she ever shared in public. And when Ashley said she eventually got cut off by her aunt, people felt like that detail made the whole picture even messier, like there was way more going on behind the scenes than anyone wanted to admit. Then Ashley added fuel without saying a single word. On TikTok, someone commented that she must have been talking about Trina and Gabe, and Ashley didn't respond, but she liked the comment. That one little tap sent the internet spinning into a whole new theory spiral, but it didn't stop there. Things got even wilder when someone on Instagram commented on a now-deleted post claiming they knew it was Trina and Gabe, and they even included an unverified story about Gabe allegedly trying to connect with a younger family member of theirs online. We cannot confirm any of these claims, and they remain strictly allegations tossed around by random users online. But the internet doesn't wait for confirmation anymore. People still ran with it like the information had been stamped and approved, and before long, the entire situation exploded across timelines. Every little detail fans thought they pieced together just made the conversation louder, more chaotic, and way more intense. Folks started digging into old clips, old interviews, old comments from years ago, trying to find anything that matched what Ashley had said. Then, there was that person who claimed they were at an airport when something went down between Gabe and someone else. They said they even tried messaging Ashley to warn her about what Gabe was supposedly doing, but claimed they got blocked before they could share anything. That story wasn't verified either, but it didn't matter. It spread like wildfire because people were already in detective mode. By this point, the situation was no longer just drama. it had turned into a full-blown internet investigation, with everyone trying to tie together bits and pieces of hearsay, old family tension, and Ashley's new statements. And every time someone added something new, the entire conversation got even louder. Gabe has passed away now, and the spotlight has shifted hard onto Trina, because people online keep saying she knew exactly what type of behavior he showed during their marriage, and stayed anyway. Even with all the cheating rumors that followed him for years, folks in the streets have been whispering that she ignored a lot of his actions and brushed off things she didn't want to deal with, choosing to point fingers elsewhere instead of holding him accountable. Back in the day, gossip blogs would drop little hints claiming Gabe was involved with different people and had some unusual habits behind the scenes, though none of that was ever officially confirmed. But either way, those stories didn't stop Trina from standing by him throughout that relationship, and that decision is exactly why the internet is pressing her today. At first, Tamar was trying to bring Ashley onto the show so she could speak for herself and explain what she experienced, but allegedly Trina wasn't having any of that. Reports say she even threatened to stop filming completely if Ashley appeared, saying it wasn't Ashley's place to discuss it publicly. So Tamar switched gears and tried to bring Ashley onto her podcast instead. But right when she made that move, Toni stepped in again and blocked it before it could even happen. What really shocked fans was hearing that Trina supposedly had no idea Toni sent that cease and desist. And that raised a whole new question for viewers. Was Toni doing all this to protect Trina, or was she trying to protect herself from the fallout? The second that rumor hit the timeline, people started breaking down every moment. Toni acted quiet or distant, trying to figure out her motive. Whispers from people close to the situation claim Toni allegedly knew about some of the issues Ashley talked about, and instead of stepping in back then or smoothing things over, she stayed silent and let the situation hang in the air. And that silence is exactly what fans are dissecting right now, because they feel like Toni's reactions today are way too strong for someone who had nothing to hide. A lot of viewers believe Toni moved with urgency because she didn't want certain conversations resurfacing, especially ones connected to that old family tension that everybody thought was buried. And now the internet is asking whether Toni went into full protection mode out of loyalty to Trina, or whether she was worried that Ashley's story would open the door to questions she didn't want to answer. Every time someone online tries to break it down, the situation gets louder because people can't wrap their heads around why Toni would take such a big risk just to shut Ashley out. That claim alone has the whole fan base looking sideways and wondering what else really went down behind closed doors. People close to the situation say Toni looked the other way back then, which means she might be protecting herself now more than anybody else. The last thing she wants is Ashley calling her out for supposedly being an enabler, and that would explain why she threw that cease and desist at Tamar with no hesitation. Everybody already knows Toni and Tamar have been clashing for years, and folks say their arguments behind the scenes have gotten seriously intense. So when Tamar started pushing hard for Ashley to come on the show and speak her truth, Toni got so heated she reportedly walked straight off set without looking back. One insider even claimed producers had to shut the whole filming day down after a heated fight broke out between Tamar and her sisters. They were supposed to be gearing up for season 2 this summer, but the drama spiraled so wildly that nothing stayed on schedule anymore, allegedly. Crew members were stressed, cast members were picking sides, and the energy on set was getting heavier every week. What was supposed to be a smooth rollout turned into a storm nobody could calm. Then Toni tried to flip the narrative by saying she wanted to honor their late sister Tracy and didn't want Ashley on the show out of respect for her memory. But according to one report, Toni stormed off the set during taping because she's exhausted with the constant arguing, constant rumors, and constant pressure the situation brought to the table. people online didn't buy the honoring Tracy spin at all because the timelines weren't adding up. They felt like Toni was reaching for any explanation she could use to cover up the real reason she didn't want Ashley speaking on anything. Fans started saying it looked more like Toni was trying to keep certain conversations from resurfacing. Conversations that could drag the whole family back into a spotlight they never wanted again. And now the fan base is louder than ever, watching every move and waiting to see who's telling the truth. Because the way Toni reacted this time felt way too personal, way too urgent, and way too emotional for something she claims is just about respect. The sister conflict got so deep that Toni supposedly told people the family made a promise when Tracy passed. They said they'd stick together no matter what. But instead of getting closer, things have gotten worse than ever, and everybody can see it. It got so messy that not a single sister showed up to the premiere of Tamar and their mother Evelyn's cookie show, and fans took that as a loud message all by itself. They kept their distance like it was some kind of silent punishment toward Tamar, making it clear the family bond is cracking right in front of everybody's eyes. And honestly, it looks like the sisters are slowly pushing Tamar out of the circle completely, whether they admit it or not. Just look at Tawanda's wedding. Tamar was the only sister who didn't show up, and fans have been side-eyeing that situation ever since. Toni and Trina were standing right next to Tawanda as bridesmaids, which made Tamar's absence stand out even more. And Tawanda didn't hide the fact she didn't want Tamar at the wedding in the first place, so the tension wasn't exactly subtle. Tamar didn't pretend either. She had a singing gig that same weekend, and she made sure everyone knew she was out handling business and securing her bag instead of sitting in any room where she wasn't welcome. But right after all that wedding drama, Tamar wiped her social media clean and went on a raw, emotional rant where she said she regretted ever doing reality TV in the first place. She disappeared for a moment like she needed to breathe, only to pop right back online the next day with even more to say. Her tweets were intense, full of real emotion, and she straight up called her family toxic to the core. She wasn't sugarcoating anything anymore, and she made it clear she was done pretending everything was okay just for the cameras. Fans were shocked, because even though Tamar has always spoken her mind, the way she laid things out this time showed just how tired she is of the drama, the silence, the secrets, and the shade coming from inside her own family. And with the way things are going now, people online are starting to wonder if the Braxton sisters will ever fix this, or if this is the moment the whole family dynamic falls apart for good.
This was not the first time of me telling this story. This has been years. It started me telling this story when my sister passed away. So this is like years of me getting to this point, to this layer. I always stand true by what I said. I always stand true by what happened. And I don't know if there was a right or wrong way, the way I handled it. I don't think that there was. And with what I speak with my therapist with, there was no right or wrong way to tell the story. I just had to tell the story.
Listen, this whole situation with Ashley and the Braxton crew is spinning out fast, and the drama's getting wild about a minute. This mess got layers, and every time someone talks, it just pulls us deeper into a tunnel that nobody asked for. From the start, Ashley was open about what she went through, and she wasn't shaky about it either. She spoke up for years, stood on the truth, and every detail matched from interview to interview like she had the whole timeline stamped in the mind. Anyone who actually listened knew exactly what she meant and exactly what she was pointing at.
And it may not be your family, and that is totally okay. I am an example of that. You may not get support from your family, and that is totally fine. You still have the right to use your voice. You still have the right to talk. You still have the right to say how you feel. The world will try to silence you. People will try to silence you, but the world needs your voice and not your silence.
But now out of nowhere, Ashley's switching up a whole tone like someone hit a reset button on a story. Suddenly, she talking like the situation wasn't that serious, like the hurt she described for years somehow shrank overnight. And that right there got everybody raising eyebrows. People don't just soften their own truth after standing on it for so long unless there's pressure somewhere. And let's be real, this ain't the type of shift that just happens because someone woke up in a different mood. When somebody been consistent for years, then starts stepping back from their own words, it screams that something or someone stepped in hard. It sounds like somebody slid in her ear, pushed the storyline, or made her feel like she had to keep the peace to protect a certain image or a certain person. Victims don't just rewrite their whole experience unless something around them changed. So the real question is, what changed? And who decided they needed her to tone everything down? Because this switch up didn't come from nowhere, and you can feel that something behind the scenes is twisting the narrative. This whole thing ain't just suspicious anymore. It's giving full-on cover-up vibes, like somebody scrambling behind the scenes to keep certain secrets locked away. Because seriously, who gains anything from Ashley flipping her whole story like this? It's definitely not Ashley, and it's definitely not the people who've been following her journey hoping for honesty and clarity.
Stepbrothers, did they come with her? Were they part of the package, or did they come along later?
They came along later.
Okay.
So my sister is 3 years younger than I am. My oldest younger brother is 4 years. And then after that, it's 8 years.
Okay.
So they came after. And it's unfortunate that even now we don't have a relationship because you were just pit against each other.
Yeah.
So the household was like all for one and one for all. You better guard up.
Wow.
And it's not really healthy.
No, definitely not. No. You know, I was wondering, like, what would the effects of those circumstances be on the younger brothers? Because it would be very difficult for them to, I guess, develop respect towards you and your sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We don't see eye to eye because the way they see life is very different than the way I've seen it. And so for them, it's hard, which is understandable.
Yeah.
When I'm speaking these things about their mother, these are quite harsh accusations
of course.
that I'm saying.
Yeah.
And if you were not there to grasp what was happening, then perhaps you'd think and be like, I think this is a little far-fetched.
Yes.
And that was something that was really hard for me because I come from this family.
So that leaves one group, the folks with a name to protect and a whole image they don't want cracked open. And here's where things start feeling like a plot twist nobody saw coming. Ashley got features that line up with Tawanda's so tight, it makes people stop scrolling and take a second look. The face shape, the structure, even the expressions. It's wild how strong the resemblance hits when you put their pictures side by side. I ain't got DNA proof in my hand, but I do got eyes. And what these eyes see is raising real questions that are hard to ignore. If something looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, and stands there like a duck, at some point, you got to ask if someone been hiding the real story all this time. And that's not even the end of it. Ashley been out here for years, putting her truth on the internet, dropping interviews, posting videos, and telling her story straight up with no shaking in her voice. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't whispering. She was out there loud and clear, but somehow her story barely made a ripple until recently, and that's strange, real strange, especially when she's tied to the Braxton family, one of the most known R&B families in the whole game. Something about that silence feels intentional, like somebody wanted her story pushed into the corner where no one would look. So how is it that Ashley been posting videos for years, but her views look like she's talking to a wall? How is her voice basically invisible, even though she's tied to people with major celebrity pull? That kind of silence don't happen by accident. That's the type of quiet that feels planned. It feels like somebody pushed our content so far down the algorithm that you'd have to trip over it just to find it. That's giving straight up content suppression, like somebody wanted her truth buried deep where nobody would ever hear it. And now let's get into Ashley's father, because the situation around him is sounding way too intense. According to her, he's been trying to shut her down hard, like he don't want a single word leaving her mouth. She said there's been pressure, attempts to silence her, and moments where she felt unsafe just for speaking on what happened. That's serious, because why would any father fight that hard to keep his own daughter quiet unless she's talking about something he don't want in the open? When someone works overtime to silence another person, that usually don't mean the story is fake. It means the story hits too close to home. Folks don't waste energy trying to shut down lies. They shut down truth because truth crack open doors they won't lock forever. So hearing that he allegedly wants her to stop talking just makes her claim sound even more real and even more dangerous to whoever she's exposing. And then out of nowhere, Right in the middle of all this tension, Ashley's sister passed away, and that shook everybody. The timing, the situation around it, and the silence that followed had people side-eyeing everything. It had the internet buzzing because it came out of nowhere and left a big question mark floating about the whole family. People instantly started wondering what's going on behind the scenes, what secrets are being protected, and who stands to gain from keeping all this in the dark. Now, when you look at all of this, the suppression, the pressure, the fear, the timing, the bigger family picture starts coming into focus. It makes the whole theory feel like it's not just theory anymore, like there's something under the surface that nobody wants touched. When you raise a kid every day, feed them, take care of them, guide them, that kid is going to naturally lock onto you as their parent, especially when they're young and nobody is explaining the full situation around them. So it sparks a real question here. If Tawanda was the one doing the day-to-day raising, could Ashley have grown up believing a story that wasn't the full truth because that's the only version she was ever given? It would explain why she always felt unsure about who she really felt like her real mother is. And now we got to look at this birth certificate situation, because this part right here is where things get legally messy fast. Ashley said her mother's name was removed from her birth certificate, and that is not the type of thing that happens with a quick phone call or a form at the DMV. Birth certificates don't just get switched up on a random Tuesday. To change that kind of document, you need court involvement, legal steps, official paperwork, the whole 9 yards. That's a serious process with serious intention behind it. So let's break that down for real. Either Ashley grew up being told something that wasn't accurate, or somebody fed her one version of the story to keep the real situation quiet. Or something way more questionable happened behind closed doors to legally rewrite her history. None of those options look simple, and all of them point in the same direction, that something about her family background was being kept under wraps for a long time. And if a legal alteration really went down, that means someone took the time, money, and effort to get the courts involved just to adjust the information tied to Ashley's identity. That kind of move ain't small. That's a major step someone takes when they want certain truths buried deep where nobody thinks to look. This lines up way too clean with the theory that Tawanda might be her real mother, and somebody didn't want that detail out in the open.
Here's where the story flips again. Out of nowhere, Ashley suddenly mentions having brothers, and this is the very first time she's ever said that in all the years she's been sharing her life online. That dropped like a bomb, because how do you talk for years about your past, your pain, your family, and never once bring up brothers until now? So where did these brothers come from? Who are they? And why were they never spoken about before? It feels like pieces of her family tree been kept in the shadows from the start. When new relatives pop up out of thin air, it hints that there are deeper layers the public has never heard about. More hidden relationships, more secrets tucked away, more parts of the story that were never allowed to surface. And every time Ashley shares something new, instead of clearing things up, it just opens another door and brings in more questions. It's like the truth is wrapped in twist after twist, and each reveal makes everything look more suspicious. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this situation ain't happening in a vacuum. The Braxton family has had multiple people come forward with their own stories over the years. Tamar spoke publicly about what she went through. Ashley shared her experiences, and Trina's ex, Gabe, had his own messy scandals that the public still talks about. That's not random. That's a pattern, and patterns don't build themselves for no reason. So with all these claims stacking up from different angles, you gotta wonder what kind of environment these women grew up in. What type of family dynamic allowed all this to stay quiet while people were hurting? It's looking like the priority in that house was keeping the family brand shiny and untouchable while the people inside were left carrying their pain alone. That kind of silence don't happen by accident. It happens when a family decides the image is more important than the truth. Now this brings us right back to Ashley in that sudden switch up that nobody saw coming. After years of standing firm on her story, she's now brushing off what she went through like it wasn't that serious. And that is not normal for somebody who's been so steady and outspoken for so long. This doesn't look like healing. It looks like somebody got in her space, leaned on her hard, and pushed her into toning everything down. Something about this shift screams pressure, not peace. And when you stack that on top of the family's past and everything they stand to lose if the full truth ever hits the light, the whole thing starts making a lot more sense. That family got a long history of trying to protect their image, so her sudden shift doesn't feel random. It feels strategic. Even more reason to believe somebody wants her story rewritten. Now, let's talk about childhood memory for a second, because this part matters. Memories from when you're young can be shaped, twisted, or straight up replaced if adults keep repeating the same story over and over. If a child hears a false version of events long enough, that becomes their reality because they don't have the power or understanding to question what the adults around them say. That's just how the brain works when you're young and trying to make sense of the world. So if Ashley grew up being told things that weren't true, like who her mother was, what happened with her birth certificate, or how her family structure really looked, then of course her understanding would be cloudy. She wasn't confused because she didn't care. She was confused because the foundation she was given was never real in the first place. She was building her whole identity on information that was twisted before she even had the chance to form her own memories. Now, let's circle back to those document changes because that part is huge and people need to get how serious it is. You cannot just walk into an office and tell someone to switch the names on a birth certificate. That is not how the law works. That kind of change takes court involvement, legal filings, proof, and a full paper trail. It's a whole process with steps that can't be skipped, and every move leaves records behind. So when Ashley says there are document changes, that tells you something big was happening behind closed doors, something official, something planned, and something that required real intention, because nobody goes through a legal maze like that unless they're trying to adjust a story that they do not want questioned. When Ashley talks about those documents being altered, that's not something that just happens by accident. For anything on that level to be changed, somebody had to go through a full legal process. So if the paperwork doesn't line up, it means somebody moved through the system on purpose, not by mistake. And let me make this part loud and clear, because people like to twist things when they don't want to face the truth. Even if some details were mixed up or fed to her wrong when she was young, her pain is still real. Her experience is still real. What she lived through doesn't disappear just because someone played games with the information she was given. Trauma doesn't vanish because paperwork got shuffled around. The secrecy in this family, the confusion, the cover-ups, the way everything feels like a maze, that only makes her story even more believable. When a family creates that much fog, it usually means they're hiding something they don't want anybody reaching for. And the attempts to silence Ashley just make everything look even darker, not clearer. Now, this is where the theory goes into way heavier territory. There's talk that Michael, Ashley's father, has been trying to shut her down using legal tactics, not conversations. Things like cease and desist letters, threats, and efforts to force her into silence. And if that's real, then his motive becomes crystal clear: protecting what he doesn't want the world to know about his past. That kind of pressure doesn't come from innocence. It comes from someone scared of their own truth getting out. And here's the wild part that connects everything. If the theory is right, if Michael and Tawanda are actually Ashley's parents, then he has even more reason to keep her quiet, because that would unleash a whole new scandal that would shape the entire Braxton image from top to bottom. It wouldn't just be messy, it would be explosive. And let's go ahead and call out the hypocrisy while we're here. This family built half their fame on reality TV, selling transparency, realness, and no filters to the whole world. They made a career off letting people into their business. But suddenly, when Ashley speaks, everyone wants silence. Suddenly, the truth is off limits. That switch-up is wild, and everybody can see it. For years, this family made serious money, putting their lives on full display. The breakups, the arguments, the drama, all of it blasted on TV like it was nothing. But behind the cameras, it's a whole different world full of secrets, contradictions, and storylines that are controlled tighter than a vote. They show the public the version that protects their brand, but the real mess stays locked away where nobody can reach it. Ashley is dragging out the parts they tried to bury for years, and that's exactly why her voice is shaking things up. And now let's talk about these brothers she mentioned, because it's already confirmed they're half-brothers. That means there are family connections the public never knew about, relationships that were kept far from the spotlight, and details that were hidden on purpose. When half-siblings pop up like that, it tells you somebody been keeping certain pieces off the table for a long time. This wasn't an accident, this was planned silence. So let's pull all of this together and look at the picture without the filters. Is Tawanda actually Ashley's real mother? When you stack the clues, the whole situation starts looking real suspicious. The resemblance between the two of them is strong, not just a kinda looks alike thing, but the type of match that makes people stop and stare. Then there's the birth certificate confusion, and that alone hints at legal moves being made behind closed doors. That kind of change doesn't happen unless someone pushes paperwork through a system they know how to use.
That's not a slip-up, that's strategy. And we can't ignore the secrecy around certain documents, the missing info, the things Ashley was told growing up, the puzzle pieces that never matched. When legal records start looking foggy, it usually means someone wanted the truth tucked away. The timeline issues don't line up either. And when timelines don't match up, that usually means somebody is bending the story to fit whatever version they want the world to believe. Then add in the way the family behaves, the pressure, the silence, the pushback on Ashley, the attempts to guide her narrative like she doesn't have her own voice. All of that together paints a picture that's hard to ignore. Every clue points in the same direction. Every piece slides into place, and the whole thing starts looking like a secret they've been trying to keep wrapped up for years. And now here's where everything gets even wilder, because once you start putting these pieces together, the whole story starts cracking open in ways the family definitely didn't expect. Ashley changing her tune, documents not lining up, half-brothers showing up out of nowhere, that's already messy. But the reactions from certain family members make it even worse because instead of clearing things up, they're dodging questions like they know the truth would blow everything wide open. The more Ashley talks, the more certain people start acting uncomfortable, like they're scared that one wrong sentence could expose a secret they spent years trying to bury. You can feel the tension, and you can tell folks behind the scenes are scrambling to control the situation before it gets completely out of their hands. That kind of behavior isn't random. It's the kind of panic you see when somebody knows the truth they don't want anyone else to hear. And have you noticed how nobody from the family is given straight answers? Everything is vague, everything is no comment, everything is brushed off or redirected like they're allergic to saying anything concrete. That's not what people do when a rumor is false. That's what people do when the rumor is a little too close to the real story. This whole situation feels like a puzzle where every time Ashley talks, another piece falls into place. And even the timing of certain statements from the family feels off, like they're waiting to see what Ashley says next before they decide what they're going to say. That's not transparency, that's strategy. And when you mix strategy with silence, that only tells the world one thing: there's something big they don't want to get out. And let's not ignore the way Ashley's energy has shifted. You can hear the conflict, you can feel the pressure, and you can tell she's trying to speak while carrying a weight she didn't ask for. Someone with nothing to hide doesn't need to silence anyone, but someone sitting on a secret this explosive, they'll do whatever it takes to keep things quiet. Every sign keeps pointing to one conclusion: something huge is being protected, and Ashley's voice might be the first crack in the wall they tried to keep sealed forever. Even without DNA laid out on the table, the clues stacking up around this situation are getting way too strong to ignore. The theory isn't just sounding possible anymore, it's starting to look like the most reasonable explanation when you line everything up side by side. Every detail, every reaction, every strange shift in behavior keep pointing in the same direction like a giant flashing sign. So now I want to hear straight from you. Do you believe the Tawanda theory is real? Do you feel like Ashley is getting pushed into silence by her own family? Does this whole thing look like a major cover-up happening right?
So
Exactly.
my
So
thing,
how would I
I know
give
where
it to
you
him?
live because I put down your down payment.
You sure did. Thank you so much for
And
that.
now that
Thank
you got
so
this
much for
little
the gift.
accident, give me my money back. That was not a
Promise
gift.
to-
Supposed to say anything. The only thing that brings us together is the cameras.
I can't wait
But
to
I
see
won't be
it.
able to be there. That's why I was calling you.
That made me very sad.
I know.
Let's dive into this because the Braxton family drama just flipped into something wild and straight up unbelievable. This whole situation between Tamar and Tawanda is way deeper than people thought, and it's loaded with broken trust, big money, and sisters turning on each other when they were supposed to be tight like glue. We're talking about $50,000. Not pocket change, not let me borrow a little something, but a real down payment.
Has been using my credit card to pay her phone bill.
My phone bill?
Now, Tony.
Beautiful.
So what?
Tamar handed Tawanda that money to lock in a house, a full-on place to live, something serious. But now Tawanda is out here acting like the cash was just some friendly gift, like Tamar just handed her 50 grand for fun. That's wild. And here's the thing. This isn't some random rumor someone made up online. There's a real property tied to this whole mess, a real listing, and actual receipts that link everything together.
I know where you live because I put down your down payment.
You sure did. Thank you so much for
And
that.
now that
Thank
you got
so
this
much
little
for the gift.
accident, give me my money back. That was not a
Promise
gift.
to God. Yes, it was. But it's
no, you
okay.
did.
The same house that popped up on their reality show lines up perfectly with what Tamar talked about. And that makes everything hit even harder. It's not just talk. It's real-life proof sitting in plain sight. What makes everything even more shocking is how the rest of the sisters decided to play it. Toni, Trina, all of them apparently knew exactly what went down, but instead of helping clear Tamar's name, they stood back and let people think she was being dramatic or even making stuff up. That's rough, especially when it's family and you expect them to step up when stuff gets messy.
You didn't. Tawanda told me her lender needed to see the money in her account and that she was waiting on a check and she would be giving me my money back. I was reluctant, but I said, okay.
Thank you so much.
You said I will pay you back the next day, and then you listed me as a creditor.
Oh my.
This whole thing is already sounding like the beginning of a storm, and it's only the first layer of the drama. That's cold on a whole different level, especially when you know someone is already battling their own mental and emotional struggles. Tamar has always kept it real about the things she's faced. She never hid that. So for her own family to gaslight her on national TV like she was confused or making things up, that's harsh. And here's the wild part. Tamar straight up told Tawanda on the show, I paid your down payment, and Tawanda didn't deny anything. She didn't argue. She didn't correct her. She actually thanked her right there in front of everybody. So how in the world does that suddenly turn into, it was a gift? Come on now. That's not how real agreements work, and everybody knows it.
It was absolutely a gift. And it wasn't that I approached her. She said, but I want to help you get, it's like, okay. And that's just something that we used to do as sisters, help each other.
The burden on you is the one that made it out. But you gotta be willing to let them fly.
I feel like I do. I feel like they don't let me.
What's making this whole situation even louder is what people have been whispering about Tawanda's money habits. Folks have been saying she's had issues with spending and borrowing before, and now everything Tamar said is starting to look way too real. Tamar even mentioned that Tawanda came into some money, something tied to a lawsuit or settlement, and even then she still didn't pay her back. That's the part that's got everyone raising their eyebrows. At this point, it's getting hard to defend Tawanda's actions because the whole thing looks less like sisterly support and way more like a straight-up betrayal. Seeing your own sister struggling and still acting like you don't owe her anything, that hits different. And listen, watching Tamar stay firm while everyone around her acted clueless, that speaks volumes. This was never just about the money. This was about loyalty, respect, and the truth being ignored while the whole world was watching. This part right here really exposes everything, because how are you living in a nice house, looking comfortable, pockets looking all right, but you still can't pay back the sister who helped you when you were down? That's the type of thing that makes people question everything, and that's wild for real. If someone comes through for you with that kind of support when you're struggling, the least you can do is make things right. Now let's break this down, because once you look at the real estate side of the story, the truth starts slipping out fast. When you're buying a house, every single dollar has to be tracked and explained. No mystery cash, no, it just showed up. None of that. The bank needs proof of where the money came from and exactly who sent it. You can get help from a family member, sure, but it all has to be in writing with full documentation, because lenders don't play around with big amounts. So if Tamar really transferred $50,000 to Tawanda, that clearly wasn't some casual, here, take this as a gift moment. This sounds much more like a short-term loan to make Tawanda look financially ready for the home purchase, the type of thing people do when they're trying to get approved and need their bank statements to look solid. That's why Tawanda suddenly calling it a gift doesn't match how real estate works at all. The numbers don't add up, the story doesn't line up, and the timing makes the whole thing look even more suspicious. It feels like someone changed the narrative after the fact. And here's where it goes, from messy to straight up unbelievable. Tamar reportedly said Tawanda promised she would return the money the very next day, like it was supposed to be a quick turnaround. But instead of paying her back, Tamar later finds out Tawanda listed her as a creditor in her bankruptcy case. That means Tawanda officially put Tamar on paperwork as someone she owed money to, even though she was publicly claiming the money was a gift. That twist right there is the kind of thing that makes people stop and go, wait, what? This whole situation just keeps getting more intense with every detail. Like what? That's bold on a whole different level. Let me break this down real quick, because this part right here is where things start looking real shady. Now, I'm not saying Tawanda actually did this, but some folks out there will list someone as a creditor in their bankruptcy just so the debt gets wiped clean. That way, they don't have to pay back the person who helped them in the first place. And guess who ends up losing? The same person who stepped up for them when they were struggling. That's messed up. And here's the part that makes everybody's eyebrows shoot up. There are real bankruptcy filings with Tamar's name on them, and it's public record. That alone backs up what Tamar has been saying from the jump. This isn't some rumor floating around. This is actual paperwork filed with the court. That gives the story a whole different weight. Now let's talk about the timeline because it hits hard. Towanda bought her home in 2018, right? But by April 2019, she was already filing for bankruptcy. That's barely a year later. So what does that tell you? She took the $50,000, closed on the property, then turned around and filed for bankruptcy, like wiping her sister off the debt meant nothing. If that doesn't look like a setup, then what does? At this point, it really starts to feel like Towanda never planned to pay Tamar back in the first place. And to make everything even stranger, Tamar says it was $50,000, while Towanda keeps insisting it was only $35,000. Why can't the numbers even match up? How do you misremember tens of thousands of dollars? Somebody is clearly twisting the story, and it's not hard to see who benefits the most from all this confusion. You know what's wild? That whole $35,000 versus $50,000 argument actually makes sense once you really think about it. If someone borrowed money all the way back in 2018, and we're only talking about it now, years later, the amount could have easily gone up just from interest alone. So that difference Towanda keeps talking about might not be some mystery. It might just be the result of her waiting forever to pay back what she owed. And let's keep it real. Tamar had proof. This wasn't some friendly little, oh, here's a sweet gift moment. There were receipts, documents, and actual bankruptcy records showing she was supposed to be repaid. So for Towanda to sit there and act like the money was just a gift, that's not just wrong. That's straight up gaslighting your own sister while the whole world is watching. Like, how do you take something that serious and twist it into something casual just to protect your image? That's wild. Towanda even tried to flip the story and make it look like Tamar was offering help she never asked for, trying to paint Tamar as controlling, like she was using money to hold something over her. But come on now, this wasn't the first time Tamar stepped in to help her. According to reports, Tamar had been covering Tawanda's phone bills. Not one line, not two lines. 6 phone lines, all on Tamar's own credit card. 6. Who even needs that many lines? That's not helping out a sister. That's taking advantage of somebody's kindness until they're drained. And here's the part that blows my mind even more. Tamar wasn't out here bragging about any of this. She wasn't running around telling everyone what she paid for or trying to embarrass anyone. She kept it quiet until the whole situation pushed her to speak up because things were getting twisted beyond recognition. That's when you know someone has really reached their limit. After all that, Towanda had the nerve to act like she's the victim, like Tamar is the bad one just because she finally called her out. Come on now. If this were anybody else, people would be calling it exactly what it looks like, straight up taking someone's money and pretending nothing happened. Tamar had every right to take legal action, and the fact that she didn't shows how much she still cared about keeping the family together instead of seeking revenge. But instead of supporting her, the rest of the Braxton crew, Trina, Toni, even their mother Evelyn, all seemed to slide onto Tawanda's side. They actually defended her, and that's wild to see. There were even rumors going around that they wanted to call the police on Tamar, the same person who lost the money. How does that even make sense? How do you protect the one who took the money and turn on the one who trusted them? Somebody needs to explain that logic because it's not lining up at all. At this point, the whole situation is screaming jealousy and favoritism from miles away. It's clear some of the sisters can't stand how Tamar always finds herself in the spotlight, and instead of dealing with their own feelings, they gang up on her like that's going to fix anything, and Towanda trying to deflect by bringing up Toni's condo situation. Please. There's a huge difference between asking your sister if she's staying somewhere temporarily and taking her money or using her credit cards without permission. One is a simple conversation. The other is a whole crime. Trying to lump those things together doesn't make Towanda look innocent. It makes her look like she's scrambling to shift blame onto anything and anyone else. This part right here shows how twisted the whole thing became because instead of honesty and accountability, it turned into blame games and finger pointing. What really gets me is how Toni and Trina acted through all of this. They knew exactly what Towanda did, the credit card situation, the money, all of it, and they still stood by her like nothing happened. How do you watch your own sister cross the line like that and still defend her? That's not loyalty. That's straight up enabling bad behavior. And here's the part that really hits. Toni even admitted on camera that she knew what was going on. She literally confirmed it herself. So that means the whole family knew the truth from the start. But instead of speaking up, they all circled around Towanda like they were protecting her from the consequences. That's sad, because that's not what real family support looks like. That's not protecting someone. That's covering up wrongdoing just to keep the family image polished. And Toni's reaction, that little smug smirk when she said, family helps each other. Excuse me, since when does taking someone's money count as helping? Since when does taking $50,000, filing bankruptcy to dodge repayment, and maxing out your sister's credit card turn into family helping family? Be serious. That's not family support. That's taking advantage of someone who trusted you. And Toni's calm, unbothered attitude while all this was playing out just shows how deep the cracks run in that family when it comes to loyalty and fairness. Some people get protected no matter what they do, and some people get blamed no matter what they didn't do. But let's get to the part that sent chills down my spine. Tamar said, "You don't want to go blow for blow with me." That line right there showed she was sitting on a whole mountain of truths she'd been holding back for years. It made everything feel 10 times heavier, like this drama wasn't even close to being over. I know where the bodies are buried. That's not just a comeback. That's a straight-up warning shot. That line tells me Tamar is sitting on way more receipts, way more secrets, and way more truth than anybody in that family wants to face. She was basically saying, I've been quiet long enough, but if you push me, I'll drop everything. And honestly, after watching how her own family treated her, who could blame her if she finally let it all out? Because let's keep it real. Tamar got painted as the crazy one, the liar, the problem, the dramatic sister who always made things bigger than they were. But when you actually look at the paperwork, the dates, the money trail, everything lines up with exactly what she's been saying since day one. The proof is literally sitting right there in black and white. Let's break it down one more time. Tawanda gets the house in 2018 using Tamar's $50,000. Cool. But not even a year later, in 2019, she files for bankruptcy and lists Tamar as a creditor, which wipes out the debt completely. Then you've got the credit card situation. Unauthorized spending, multiple charges, and Tamar footing the bill without even knowing it first. And still, not one sister stepped up to defend Tamar. Not one single voice saying, hey, she's telling the truth. Instead, they all stayed quiet, acting like it was minor drama, brushing it off like it didn't matter. Why? Let's be honest. It comes down to jealousy, favoritism, or maybe a messy mix of both. Whatever the reason is, it's toxic. The truth is this. The Braxton sisters, especially Tawanda, betrayed Tamar in a way that cuts deep, period. Let's call it what it is. Tawanda acted like a sister who couldn't handle Tamar shining brighter, and instead of owning her actions, she slid into shady territory. And instead of holding her accountable, the family just turned their heads and let everything slide like it was normal. And what's worse, this wasn't a one-time slip-up. This was a pattern, a whole cycle of ignoring Tamar's side and protecting the one who caused the damage. This part right here shows how twisted the family dynamics really were and how much Tamar had to swallow just to keep the peace. Every single detail from Tamar's side, the money, the documents, the public records, all of it lines up perfectly. The evidence does not lie, and yet her sisters still threw her under the bus like none of it mattered. That's the part that hits the hardest because the way they gaslighted Tamar in front of everybody was honestly sickening. Picture this. You lend your sister $50,000 out of pure love, just trying to help her get back on her feet. No drama, no pressure, just family supporting family. Then she doesn't pay you back, files bankruptcy to wipe the whole thing away, and somehow still flips the story to make you look unstable. That's not just sneaky. That's cold and calculated. And what makes it even worse is how the rest of the family played along like nothing was wrong, acting like Tamar was being too much or extra just for telling the truth. That's manipulation, emotional pressure dressed up as family loyalty, and it's exhausting watching someone get painted as dramatic when all they did was speak facts. Let's be honest, Tamar has had one of the strongest careers out of all the sisters besides Toni. She built her own lane, dropped hits, had major TV moments, created iconic moments, and earned real success that people still talk about. And you know what comes with success? Jealousy. And you can feel it heavy in this situation. It's like Tawanda couldn't stand watching Tamar win while she was still struggling. So what did she do? She found a way to benefit from Tamar's kindness, took advantage of her support, and when the truth came to the surface, she played the victim like she was the one wronged. And instead of correcting things, the rest of the family closed ranks around Tawanda like the whole situation was just a misunderstanding. They acted like nothing happened, like Tamar was making noise for no reason, like the evidence wasn't sitting right there in plain sight. This right here shows exactly how deep the jealousy and favoritism runs, and how fast people will flip a story when someone else's success makes them uncomfortable. What does that really say? It tells Tamar loud and clear that her money is good enough for them, but her feelings don't matter. Her truth doesn't matter. It's basically saying, we'd rather protect the one who did wrong than the one who got wronged. That's not loyalty. That's toxicity wrapped up in a pretty bow and labeled family. Because real family doesn't cover up lies or defend someone's bad actions just because they share the same last name. Real family checks you when you're wrong, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. That's what accountability is supposed to look like. And for anybody trying to shrug this off as just family drama, let's be serious for a second. This isn't some petty argument or little disagreement. We're talking about fraud, financial betrayal, and straight-up theft. Tamar could have pressed charges if she wanted to. She had every right to, but she didn't. And why? Because she still loved her sister enough to protect her, even after being hurt. And what did she get back in return? Lies, denial, public embarrassment. Tawanda acting innocent after everything that happened is next-level boldness. Tamar gave her grace, and Tawanda turned that grace into another weapon against her. And you know what makes this whole situation even more twisted? The way Tamar's silence has been flipped and used against her. People see her staying quiet and think she's over it or being dramatic, but that's not what silence always means. Sometimes being quiet comes from being done, not defeated. She's had to sit back and watch her family rewrite the story in real time, acting like things happen differently, acting like she's exaggerating, acting like the truth is optional, and instead of defending her, they used her vulnerability as a tool to make her look unstable, like her pain didn't count, like her voice wasn't worth listening to. This wasn't just betrayal. It was emotional pressure dressed up as family loyalty. And seeing her pushed aside like that says everything about how deep the divide really is. That's not peace, that's pressure. Behind the scenes, insiders have said Tamar has been distancing herself from all the chaos for real. No more family vacations, no more group interviews, no more pretending everything is sunshine when it's not. She's choosing her peace, and honestly, that might be the smartest move she's ever made. Because what do you do when your own bloodline becomes the source of your pain? You protect yourself, even if it means stepping away from the people you love the most. Sometimes survival means creating distance, even if it hurts. Meanwhile, Tawanda has been moving like nothing ever went down, smiling online, doing interviews, acting unbothered, like her whole reputation isn't hanging by a thread. It's almost like she's trying to outshine the scandal by pretending it never existed, like if she ignores it long enough, everybody else will too. But the internet doesn't forget. Every time her name comes up, people still mention that bankruptcy filing and that missing $50,000. That's a stain no PR trick, no interview, and no pretending can wash away. What makes this even more heartbreaking is how divided the fan base is now. Some folks are still praying the sisters can work things out someday, but a lot of people are completely done. They see the pattern clear as day. Every single time Tamar tells her truth, the family gaslights her until she looks like the villain in her own story. It's a cycle, a deep, messy cycle, and this time it feels like she's finally breaking it. She's choosing herself, choosing her healing, choosing peace over pretending. And honestly, this whole situation shows how fame, money, and pride can wreck a family from the inside out. The Braxton name used to represent unity, talent, and sisterhood, but now it's tangled up with betrayal, jealousy, and silence that says way more than words ever could. Tamar's story isn't just about the money. It's about the emotional hit that comes from loving people who keep proving they don't love you the same way back. And the saddest part, that wound didn't come from strangers. It came from home. At this point, it's hard not to shake your head at how deep this betrayal really runs. It's one thing to make a mistake, but it's a whole different level of boldness to keep pretending nothing ever happened while the person you hurt is left carrying all the weight. Tamar tried to protect her sister, tried to keep the peace, tried to hold the family together, and somehow she still got painted as the villain. That kind of emotional damage, no amount of money could ever fix that. You can feel the shift too. The vibe between the sisters isn't what it used to be. Every interview, every post, every moment they're seen together, there's this quiet tension that speaks louder than words ever could. And even though Tamar has been staying silent, that silence is powerful. Sometimes the strongest clapback is peace, and it's starting to show exactly who's been in the wrong all along. Meanwhile, watching Tawanda act like everything's smooth while the receipts are out in the open, whew! That's a whole different level of audacity. She's smiling for the cameras, posting online like nothing ever went down. But let's be real. The internet does not forget. People remember the filings, the money trail, the credit card drama, every loose detail that still doesn't add up. And every single time Tawanda's name starts trending,